Our military troops have donated more money to Ron Paul than to any other candidate for president. But if you rely on the mainstream media for news about the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, you won't hear the truth about what our troops really think. They understand that their purpose is to defend America and its borders, not to overthrow foreign governments or to invade and occupy sovereign nations that represent no military threat to our country. They understand that America has no moral authority to police the world or to impose our values on foreign countries by force. But the primary reason Ron Paul has received such strong support from our troops is this: they know who will fight and die in these undeclared illegal wars, and it will not be the unaccountable politicians who start them. I served 5 years as an infantry officer in the United States Marine Corps and took an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Unlike most of our political leaders, the patriotic men and women who are serving our country in uniform take that oath very seriously. Ron Paul also has a superior understanding of economics and monetary policy and is the only candidate for president who has demonstrated the integrity and courage to speak the truth about the looming economic crisis in our country. America is more than $12 trillion in debt, primarily to foreign central banks, and has accumulated more than $25 trillion in long-term unfunded liabilities. We cannot possibly repay that amount of debt, and unless we take drastic and immediate measures to control government spending, future generations of Americans will be financially enslaved by our current political leaders. For the first time in any presidential campaign, Ron Paul has exposed the truth about how the privately owned Federal Reserve System and our political leaders have compromised America's economic sovereignty through the manipulation of our credit markets, constant inflation of our money supply, and out-of-control deficit spending on domestic entitlement programs and foreign military intervention. America cannot sustain a global military empire, and we have no moral responsibility or authority to do so. Ron Paul is the only candidate for president who has warned of the catastrophic financial destruction that America will suffer if we do not bring our troops home from around the world. If elected president, Ron Paul will fight to dismantle the corrupt Federal Reserve System and eliminate the IRS. He will bring our troops home and defend our borders. Ron Paul is the only candidate for president who will pursue a course of fiscal responsibility that restores integrity to our monetary system and protects the earnings and savings of middle-class Americans. In 2008, we will have the opportunity to vote for a true American patriot for president, a brilliant, soft-spoken, and humble man who will serve our country with wisdom, integrity, and courage. Ron Paul's message of peace and freedom and prosperity is a message for all Americans. It is a message that will bring us together, not divide us. As president, Ron Paul will be the champion of the Constitution. He will ensure a strong national defense, and he will promote peace and trade with all nations. By his personal example, Ron Paul will inspire us to demonstrate kindness, compassion, and generosity toward one another. He will teach us to honor and respect our differences and encourage us to work together for the cause of peace and justice and individual liberty in our country. Ron Paul's allegiance will always be to the American people. His devotion will always be to the Constitution and to our freedom. Ron Paul's life is an open book. He and his wife Carol have been married for over 50 years and have 5 children and 18 grandchildren. He proudly served as a flight surgeon in the United States Air Force and as a medical doctor has delivered more than 4,000 babies. But the most instructive insight into Ron Paul's character and personal values and how he compares to the other candidates for president comes directly from his voting record in Congress. Ron Paul has never voted to raise taxes. He has never voted for an unbalanced budget. He has never voted for a federal restriction on gun ownership. He has never voted to raise congressional pay. He has never taken a government-paid junket. He declined to participate in the lucrative congressional pension program. He returns a portion of his congressional office and staff budget each year to the United States Treasury. He voted against the unconstitutional Patriot Act. He voted against government regulation of the internet. And he voted against the Iraq War. Ron Paul's vote has never been for sale to the lobbyists and powerful special interest groups that control Washington. For over 2 decades, he has stood alone in Congress as the faithful guardian of our liberty. Now it is our time to stand with him for the future of our country. Millions of Americans have lost confidence in our government. They've given up on the ideals and principles that inspired the birth of our republic more than 200 years ago. But if you believe, as I do, in the founding principles of America, limited government, equal justice, individual liberty, and peaceful foreign relations, Ron Paul is the only candidate for president who is worthy of our vote. Someone recently said that Ron Paul isn't running for president. It's the people who are running for president, and that we've selected Ron Paul to be our spokesman. It's an apt description of the Ron Paul revolution. I hope that you will join us.